Well, the story first of all is about a platoon of paras who are based on Kajaki Dam, protecting it. And one morning they spotted some enemy activity and they chose to go off the hill and to engage this particular enemy activity, just three of them. And in the process they crossed a wadi which was full of old Russian mines that had been left from the previous conflict. One of them stood on one and the rest of the story unfolds from there. Why did I like it as a story? I think first of all, it's unbelievable. You couldn't make it up, and yet it's true. So it's a fascinating story from that standpoint. Plus, it's about time we made a British war movie about British heroes, really.
We so rarely see war films about contemporary conflicts. Why do you think that is, and why is it so important that that changes?
That's a very, very good question, which you should ask a lot of people, probably not me. I think it's probably to do with empire, it's to do with Northern Ireland, it's to do with wars that we didn't really want to be involved in, which has just meant that the media, if you like, aren't that interested in war per se. But that's the Americans don't have a problem with that. They keep making war films, so it's about time that we sort of put our own mark in the sand. And to watch it, think about Remembrance Day, which was only sort of yesterday. We all think of that as the First World War and the Second World War. Well, hey guys, we've been fighting every year bar one, I think, since the Second World War, but we've made no films about those wars, so it's about time we did. Do you know what? Our approach to it was just to research the hell out of it, really, and to try and get it as real as possible. Because the flip side of being over-graphic and being sensational is it's your coy. And coy is no good either. So you've got to find something that is just realistic, and to a certain extent shocking, because if you blow your leg off, it doesn't look good. So we just tried to be genuine, and our whole brief to the whole team was just making sure that we researched everything and got it as true to life as possible. Well, first of all, the real life heroes made this film. Tom and I, Tom's the writer. Early doors, we went on a research trip and we went and spoke to all the guys who had actually been there and took their testimony, if you like. And they told us not only, obviously, factually what went on, but what was fantastic is they just brought great character insights, and we learned about them. We met them properly as individuals, which meant that when we wrote the script, or when Tom wrote the script, it genuinely sort of picked up on that. And it's quite odd, last night they had their screening and I was outside the pub, strangely enough, having a beer with one of them. It was like I just stepped into one of Tom's scripts because they spoke exactly like the script did. So that was a really, really great thing. The other half of your question, of course, is finding cast to do it. And fairly early doors, we realised that this film wasn't going to work with stars. So we wanted to find some real sort of great actors up and coming. And the Hubbards cast it for us, and I think they saw about 500 people, and eventually ended up with our fantastic cast. I'd like them to enjoy it as a film experience. It is a piece of cinema. It's exciting, it's gripping, it's tense, but also, it's real. This is the real thing. This isn't Code of War. This isn't a computer game. This is what it's really like, guys. And these are your peers. For a younger audience, these guys are in their late teens, early 20s when they're out there doing it. So it's not like they're sort of my age. They're their peers that are out there doing this stuff.
I think once you read that script, the responsibility of playing Tug is probably the highest note that you can hear. But to be able to tell a tale about those boys who were actually on the ground in Afghanistan and not necessarily fixate on the glorification of war or anything like that, but actually look into the brotherhood and the bond of those guys. And Tug happened to be an integral part, and he'd say it himself, anybody would do what he did, but he happened to be that person who did have to dig deeply, as well as a lot of the characters, really. So yeah, it was a harrowing day for all, but a story that I think should be told. For the physical preparation, as soon as we'd done a boot camp, I was hell bent on meeting Tug. I wanted to look like him, sound like him, speak like him. And we made the decision to put a bit of weight on, but actually, when you're shooting in 50 degrees and the film's an hour 108 minutes, you don't want me to be going from 15 stone to 12 stone in the case of an hour. So we went away from that, we moved away from that, and we decided to focus more on putting myself in his situation and playing the circumstances of that scene, which I think speak loudly enough. I think for myself, and what I hope an audience would take away from it, is an insight into what these guys are actually doing, some of the horrific situations that they're putting themselves in jeopardy for. And at the end of the day, you know, I found a huge amount of camaraderie and brotherhood taken away, and that was brought to light for me. You hear horror stories about the military, but actually, when you're down there, you're working hard for your friends, and that's the bottom line. The man to your left and the man to your right, and that's who matters at that moment.
Describe your emotions being on the red carpet for this event.
I never actually dreamed it would actually get this far, but I'm really chuffed it's made it this far. It's great. My experiences is the worst day I've ever imagined, and it's my worst day in my life. I hope I never relive again. And hopefully it'll show off the bravery of everyone actually on the day and how we kept together and managed to all get out of there.
Why do you think it's important to have a story like this brought to life on screen for people around the country, around the world to experience?
Because it was an extraordinary day, so I think it needs to be brought to film, because there's not been a decent movie about any war movies by the British since the Second World War, and certainly we've had enough dramas in the past since then, so it definitely needs to be brought to screen, yeah. To be honest, I don't think there is a day you could train to be like this, because there was a lot of stuff that was carried out that was just through friendship and like bravery that you're not taught, you know what I mean?
I mean, like you say, there are so many acts of bravery on this day. Looking back, is there one particular memory that you look at and feel represents the very best of what the armed services are capable of?
Basically, because when we were winched out the actual minefield, Mark Wright shouted to me, if I die, tell my family and my uncle that I love them. And I was just like, shut up, this time we're going to be back in it. Next night we're going to be back in the pub. So he knew he was dying, but he still carried on till the end, still managed to keep us informed of what was happening and what was happening next. So that was basically the bravest thing I've seen.
And of course, we've just come through a very poignant period in the calendar with the remembrance events. Why do you think it is so vitally important that as a nation we continue to honour and protect the memory, the legacy of all the people we've lost in armed service?
Because basically, just to prove and hope that all the 453 dead aren't really a waste, because we don't want to see it do that way by Afghan going back to the regime it had before we went in to get to the place. So I think hopefully that will show the bravery of just 12 regular guys in the army, that just camaraderie.
There's wonderful organisations like Help the Heroes out there doing their very best to help support our armed servicemen. I'm curious, do you feel there is enough done though to support particularly our injured servicemen?
I can't really say on that, because I got discharged a couple of years ago, and the care we had at Headley Court was fantastic then, and ongoing since then. I've been looked after at a NHS hospital, but that's all been funded by the MOD, so I really can't have any bad words to say about it.
And of course, I think the Invictus Games is a particularly inspiring example of what I think people out of service are capable of, even when dealing with life-changing injuries. How proud do you feel when you're watching events like that?
I thought it was really good. Yeah, it's fantastic how these guys that have been blown up like after me, and they maybe get lesser injuries and stuff like that, even worse injuries myself, just cracking on and getting on my life and carrying on as normal.
And I guess my final question, do you have a message, particularly to a younger generation who are considering going into service themselves, about why what you do is so important?
I've got nothing bad to say about the time in the army. It happened, and it's just part of army life. And the way I always see it is, you can get knocked down by a car tomorrow and lose a leg. So, but it's a fantastic job. I've not got anything bad to say about it. My 20-year service.
Can you describe your emotions being on the red carpet for this event?
It's amazing. It's a once in a lifetime thing. It's great to be here with Liz, and it's amazing. Yeah, I think the story is about what happened in a minefield. It was it shows the comradeship between friends and brothers, and it just gives that insight of what we go through in a tough situation, and the friendships and the bonds that come true, and the banter and the laughs that we have to survive.
How do you cope in a situation like this, which training really can't prepare you for?
I don't know, I think it's kind of down to the day, and you know, different personalities are what make the film, for one, but secondly, different personalities made it a little bit easier in that minefield. So it was everybody laughing and joking, you know, we are going to get out of this, we are going to come out of it alive, and that's what kind of does stray you away and gets you out of there.
Things like the Invictus Games are an inspiring example of what servicemen are capable of, particularly when dealing with life-changing injuries. How proud do you feel looking at events like that? Amazing.
I mean, I watched the Invictus Games, and it was great to see a lot of my friends that have come, you know, have been injured after me, doing so well, and see them on the main stage was phenomenal. I was fortunate enough to go to Sochi this year as well for the Paralympics and see that, and you know, seeing the first British gold on snow was awesome, and it gives injured soldiers something to get, you know, something to achieve and a goal to get to.
Fantastic organisations like Help the Heroes out there, but do you feel that enough is done to support particularly our injured servicemen?
I think there's always more that can be done, but I think the charities that are out there and are available are amazing and support the soldiers really well. You know, it's a learning curve. I think Afghanistan and London 2012 Olympics kind of brought disability onto another level, and I think the charities have kept up with that, and they support the guys day in, day out. For me, I joined the army at 16, so it was a life-saving choice from there, because you know I wasn't the best young person in the world, and the army kind of saved me and turned me into the man I am today. So I think service in the army does, in any of the forces, gives you that opportunity to live life, travel the world, and just meet friends that are going to be there for life. You know, I think the line "we will remember them" is a great line, and I think without remembering what people have done before us, how can we go on? So that's kind of, you know, that's the way I see it. For what people have given us means we're still here today and we're talking now.
Well, when I first read the script, the words from these soldiers' mouths, you knew this was a true story. You knew that these were real words just from reading it. No one had to tell you that before. It pulls you in. There's no other way to say it. This is a movie about war, that you never see the war. You never hear about the politics behind it. You're just living 24 hours in the life of these British soldiers, and an out of the blue incident that happened and how they dealt with that with extreme bravery and heart. Mark, from everything I've gathered, was a very friendly man. He would go, before this incident, there was always stories of him going out of his way to help other people. Like he would even take other soldiers washing home to try and get his own mother to do it, take it back and go, "There you are, guys, look what I've done for you." You know, he's just a really open-hearted, friendly guy, and a tremendous soldier. That's everyone will say about how great a soldier he was, and it's not just one of these things where people say something posthumously after he's passed. This guy was a legend before this day, and that's a reason this needs to be seen. Is like, this is the one chance you've got to honour this guy's memory, and I hope we've done it right. Physically, we had a couple of months of dieting and then getting ourselves in shape for it. During that time as well, we were given access to all the interviews with the soldiers, the vets that were there on the day. We could look into the inquest as well. Any information we wanted, we were given. I was allowed access to Mark's parents, who opened their doors to me and gave me anything I really wanted to ask. They were really open and told me exactly who he was, and that was invaluable. And other than that, we went into 2 days of an extreme boot camp, and that really set us up, because as soon as we did that, we flew out and we felt like we were ready to take it on, and then we just hit that heat of Jordan, and then it just got real. It just got real from that point on. I hope they just get a real good idea of exactly what these troops are going through there. I don't think it's been shown on film before, exactly a true portrayal of the British troops in Afghanistan. I would like to hope that it gives some respect to them. People start realising that it's not about the politics for these guys. They're just there doing their job, and it's like they're doing one hell of a job, and it'd be really good for them to be recognised. They are heroes, and be it if you agree with the reasons why they're there, it's like we need to pay them that respect. So I really hope that people take an interest in the soldiers, even if they don't believe in the politics behind it.
I think, we realised quite readily that we were going to be tested on authenticity and veracity, and that meant that we really had to cover off the truth as we knew it. So whether that was through the Board of Inquiry report, whether it was from speaking to the veterans, whether it was speaking to the family of those that didn't survive the action, it was very, very important for us to if we were held to question, that we could look people dead in the eye and say, this is as close to the truth as you can possibly get. It is the true story. I think there's a sensitivity, and I think there is a question over, is there a current contemporary audience that is ready to come out in support of this type of story? But I think some of the best bits of cinema are sometimes challenging and aren't just the easy fodder that are sort of by the numbers. So I like the fact that we're asking questions and that we're pushing boundaries a little bit, and I think we now move in that sort of commercial phase of a film to will it land with an audience, and I very much hope that whether people watch it from behind their fingers, behind a cushion, or behind their sofa when it comes out on DVD, that people do watch this film. It's important that we recognise what we ask of our serving personnel. It's not necessarily a by-the-numbers British indie. We had the challenge of persuading people that we felt we could deliver a film on a modest independent budget, and that drew a few sort of strokey beards and scratchy heads. But I think it's it's testament to the hard work on everyone's side, the veterans, the production crew, and everyone out in Jordan, that we've got to this point in the film's life, and we're now in Leicester Square ready to roll the curtain up.
It's sort of not so much inspired by the real life story. The film is the real life story. We've been very true to what happened that day, and the story involves a three-man sniper patrol setting out from a ridge, going to another ridge, going down into a wadi, a dried-out riverbed, and triggering a Soviet mine in an old unmarked minefield, and then follows the rescue attempt as 10 or 12 blokes come piling in to try and save them. We saw the story and we thought it would make an extraordinary film. As filmmakers, we look for great stories, whether they're made up or not made up. And I think we were very interested. We'd been actively trying to pursue and look for the kind of, we were looking for sort of a film about the modern British war experience, and whether we were going to make that up. And if you're going to make that up, something a lot of writers will do is they'll find lots and lots of stories and cherry pick bits from them. And I think Tom found this story and realised he didn't really need to improve on it.
Those of you who've seen the film will know that it's not really a classic hero's journey in the traditional film structuring sense. It's an ensemble cast. There must be between 10 and 12 sort of main featured roles, and that's simply testament to the fact that we went around the country with our notepads and spoke to every guy who's down there. We got their personal view of events and we tried to replicate that on screen, and we needed to be a little selective at times, and we needed to highlight one or two characters who were in the thick of things. But it's been a unique writing process for me, because it doesn't follow the classic sort of Tom Cruise model, and there are these details and these moments of drama that people related to us, and moments also of black comedy, moments of humanity, heroism, that you really couldn't make up, and you wouldn't make it up that way if you were following the screenwriting textbook. But that made it all the more interesting for us. I think it makes it a more original viewing experience for an audience. So hopefully people won't have seen anything quite like this before, and that's probably testament to the fact that war films often follow conventions. They very rarely actually follow real life, and if we can show people something that's new and true, then that's maybe quite an exciting combination. The Americans are, for better or worse, have more of a track record in featuring these more modern conflicts. I think there is inevitably a political dimension to them that was less prevalent in World War II. You know, it's probably easier to draw black and white in World War II. But I think ever since the Vietnam War onwards, there have been war films that have explored the ambiguity, the political ambiguities of the situation, dealing with fallout, psychological fallout after the fact. And through all of that, that seems to have become the mainstream for war films. And what seems to have been lost, perhaps, is telling tales from the front line, tales of extraordinary danger and heroism that you or I might not experience in our everyday lives. I certainly hope we don't. And so that felt original to go after that. And as Andrew said, the fact these are Russian mines, they're not Taliban mines, you hardly see the enemy at all in this film, means that we could concentrate on the men, on their experience, on their relationships, on their camaraderie, and on their personal stories as they try to get out of this. So hopefully we can all relate to it a bit more. That's not to say there aren't political questions to be asked and answered, but that's not what this film does.
We're very keen to be as realistic as possible. And to that end, we worked a lot with military advisors. We spent a lot of time. We had a guy out on set with us the whole time who was right on the detail. That's not how you hold your rifle. That's what should be on your arm. And so we were really keen to get it right. We had some sort of production challenges around finding a location that would look like it did, and we went to South Africa and we went to Jordan and we explored Morocco, but we ended up finding in Jordan an absolutely fantastic location. You've then got to find the right people to work with, you've got to cast it. We worked with some fantastic casting directors, the Hubbards, who put together, you know, one of the best cast I've ever worked with. And then we had to execute it. So that's about finding really good people, doing what they do really well. And we were fortunate to have an absolutely first-class technical crew and production crew.